Toddler tantrums are not fun. We all know that. But did you know they are very normal and are to be expected? In fact, I would tell you that if your toddler is not having tantrums, then you are being too easy on your toddler. You are not saying no to your toddler and letting your toddler's getting anything that he or she wants. Having a tantrum is a very normal part of development for a child. Of course, normal and acceptable are not the same thing. So just because it's normal doesn't mean we don't do anything about it. Think about your child learning to walk. When your child learns to walk, your child falls. That's normal. Think about learning to go potty. When your child is learning to go potty, your child's going to have accidents. That's normal. That doesn't mean that we forever have accidents or that we are forever falling. It just means it's a normal part of the process. Tantrums are a coping mechanism. They are a way for your child to express disappointment and to deal with disappointment. During this video, we are going to talk about common causes of tantrums, what to do when your child has a tantrum, and things you can do to prevent tantrums in the future. Hello, my name is Valerie. I have been blogging at babywisemom.com since the year 2007. I love helping parents love parenting, and part of that is having a nice, peaceful home, and part of that is addressing and preventing tantrums. So let's talk about it. And of course, be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. All right, let's talk about some common causes for tantrums. Of course, we have it's developmental, it's normal, it's going to happen. But there are other things that could be happening that are contributing, making tantrums more common, preventing your child from getting over tantrums. So here are some common causes. One is that your child has too many choices. If your child gets to make all the decisions or too many decisions, even if it's not all of them, then you're probably going to have some tantrums. This is called a choice addiction. So if your child constantly gets to decide what shirt she's wearing, what cup she's drinking from, which color of plate she has at lunch, what time she goes to nap, if she goes to nap at all of those things are things that are contributing to her getting what we call wise in your own eyes and thinking she's all hot stuff. And so if you try to tell her no, she's going to have a tantrum about it. Another really common cause of tantrums is just simply a lack of follow through from the parent. So if you say, hey, if you XYZ, then 1, 2, 3 is going to happen. And so your child, being the little scientist that he is going to test and try XYZ. And nothing happens. Nothing happens, and your child learns, mom and dad don't mean what they say. So if they tell me not to do something, I can decide if I want to follow that or not. Another really common cause is if your child is too hungry or too tired. None of us can really control our tempers very well if we are hungry or tired, correct? Very much more so toddlers. They're new to this world. They're new to developing skills of controlling themselves and filtering themselves. And so you cannot expect a tired or hungry toddler to behave themselves. Another common cause is that your child does not feel understood or literally can't communicate through words or gestures very well and just gets super frustrated because communication can't happen. And then of course just simply being upset that things didn't go his way. And it's normal to have those emotions. Again, like I said, your little toddler is new to life and trying to figure out what is and isn't okay, how to manage emotions. This is a learning process. I just shared some causes and now you're wondering, well, great, what do I do about these tantrums? They're normal, here are some common reasons, but what do I do about it? The first thing to do is if you recognized in that list of causes I gave anything that's like, yeah, I think that's what's going on, always address the why. So if you're thinking, I'm giving my toddler way too many choices, pull those choices in. Your toddler's not going to say, oh good, mom took away my ability to make all of these choices, I'm so glad. No, your toddler's going to resist that at first, but you will find that very quickly you get more peace and fewer tantrums. When a tantrum happens, you need to stay calm and you need to be empathetic. It does not work well if you have a tantrum back at your child. And you can't really expect your child to not throw a tantrum if you are having a tantrum of your own, even if it's an adult version of a tantrum, so it's not quite throwing yourself on the floor and kicking and screaming, but completely losing your patience, losing your cool. That's not any better than what your child is doing. So you need to reflect what you expect. If you want your child to not have a tantrum, you also need to not have a tantrum. You also want to express understanding. I know that you're upset that it's time for nap. I know that you want to stay up and play. I understand. I know it's not fun to go to sleep, but it's still what needs to happen. I know that you're sad that you can't play with that toy right now, but Susie's playing with that toy and it's her turn. You can express understanding and patience, like, yes, I get it. I get that you're upset and I understand why. That will go a long way. Remember, one of the causes was your child feeling like he's not understood. So if you're expressing and demonstrating, yes, I understand why you are upset, it will help him calm down because, like, okay, I don't need to be screaming to try to express myself because mom gets it. But while you are expressing understanding, don't try to reason with your child. There are some toddlers out there who are super logical and you'll be able to talk this through with them, but most aren't. Most are not at that point yet. Don't expect it. Don't be frustrated if your child isn't there. Don't try to reason with a toddler, especially during a tantrum. There are some really great tactics to helping a child through a tantrum. You have redirection, substitution, and distraction. So let's say it's time to leave the park and your child is super upset. You can distract your child by, hey, look at that cool car over there. Or, wow, did you see that bird up in the sky? You know, finding little things that can move your child's attention from the tantrum towards something else. Young children are super easy to distract. We all know that. So this is a pretty easy tactic to employ. Of course, some children are not going to be fooled and be distracted. And so maybe you need to completely redirect. Let's say your child is trying to play with a toy that a sibling has. Think, no, don't play with that one. Let's go do this instead. Or let's if your child's getting into a plant in a certain room, you pick your child up and move him to play with a toy that's acceptable to play with. Another great tactic is substitution, and that's where you give your child something similar to do, but that is acceptable to you. Let's say your child is trying to play in your dog's water dish. You don't really want your child playing in your dog's water dish. It can be messy. You don't really want your child's hand in your dog's water for various reasons. And so, no, we're not going to splash in that water, but let's go take a bath and you can splash in the bath instead. Or let's go outside to the water table and you can splash in that instead. Or let's take a bowl, if you don't have a water table, let's take a bowl of water outside on the grass and you can splash there. So it's not that splashing isn't okay, it's that there's a time and a place. And so you're just substituting, we're not going to do that, but we can do this instead, that's similar. That really helps your child get in that experimentation, and it takes away the novelty, so they're less apt to continue to try it, to stay stubborn, and for a tantrum to ensue because the butting of heads has commenced. If your child is super frustrated and super upset and cannot calm down, you can try things like breathing techniques to help your child calm down. In moments of tantrums, you want to make sure that you think before you act. Sometimes parents think, I have to react immediately if I want there to be any lasting impression upon this tantrum. You can stop and think. You can think through, okay, why is my child having a tantrum? Like, what is the reason? What is the cause? What are my options? What should I do about it? And then act on it. You don't have to act immediately without taking a moment to think. So go ahead and give yourself that time you need. It won't take you that long, but it can save you and prevent you from doing something that later you think, that wasn't the greatest option. So go ahead and take some time to think. Make sure that you are clear in your expectations and in your instructions. So you want to do that before tantrums start, and then during tantrums, you can remind your child of, hey, remember this is the rule. You can also be clear during a tantrum, and always remembering that sometimes super emotional people don't really listen to you while you're talking. You can have consequences for tantrums. So as you are sure that your child understands, like, this wasn't acceptable behavior, you can start to have consequences. For example, when my son was young, if he threw a tantrum when it was time to turn off video games, then he lost the privilege to play video games the next day, because that wasn't okay to throw a tantrum at the end. And so that really helped him to learn to control himself, because if he wanted to play video games the next day, he knew that he needed, even though he was disappointed, he needed to stop the video games without throwing a fit. Sometimes it's super helpful to simply ignore the tantrum. One time when Caitlin was about 2 years old, she threw this big old tantrum in the store, and I can't remember why. She either needed to do something or I told her not to do something. She was upset. She carefully placed herself on the floor, and then she had a tantrum. So I stepped back from her and ignored her. Now, I was still close enough that I was right there and could help her if needed, but I didn't try to talk her out of it. I didn't touch her. I just stood and ignored her. I looked off, pretended like I was super interested in something else in the store, and she tried her tantrum for a bit, and then she stopped. She wasn't getting the reaction that she wanted from me, and so she stopped. So children, when they're throwing a tantrum, often are looking for some sort of response from you. So if you don't give them that response, they have no reason to continue the tantrum. So ignoring often is a great way to respond. Another thing you can do is hold your child on your lap. This is something I did in church when my children were young. If they were having a tantrum, I would put my child I would take them to a quiet place in the church and then put them on my lap and just hold them. Hold them on my lap until they calm down. And sometimes just that physical touch is what they need. Another great option is timeout or isolation. So if your child's throwing a huge tantrum and you're at home and your child just will not stop, you can say, it's okay for you. If you want to throw this tantrum, go ahead and continue, but you can't do it out here with the whole family. If you're going to throw a tantrum, you need to go into your room and throw your tantrum in your room. This helps the child because, remember, the child's looking for a response, the child's looking for an audience. If you remove the audience, you remove the opportunity for a response, then it's just not as appealing. So they can go to their room, they can finish off their tantrum, they're usually back in like 60 seconds. So it's a great way to get them to be like, all right, I guess I need to stop. Okay, tantrums are normal part of development. They're going to happen, but we can prevent them from becoming a common or constant occurrence. Being normal doesn't mean being always present. So first up, we want a solid schedule. Again, make sure your child is well rested and has food. If you're going out in public and you know that your child's a type who's going to have a tantrum if she gets hungry, take a snack with you to help prevent that tantrum from happening out in public. Even if you're not normally a snacking family, we don't normally snack much, but I had a child who would throw a tantrum if she was hungry. So if I was going out, I made sure there was a snack there. So if she started to get to that hunger point, she had a snack so that she didn't have a giant tantrum out in public. Another great way to prevent tantrums is to teach your child delayed gratification. That means that you don't always get what you want as soon as you get it. One great way to teach this is through independent playtime. Your child learns to solve problems independently in independent playtime and learns to have to wait for things at times in independent playtime. You can also do it by simply, when your child asks for something, you can say, sure, I will do that for you. Just let me finish XYZ first, and then I will do that. And then your child learns to wait. You have to make sure that you finish XYZ and then you respond. You need to be reliable. This is another important part of preventing tantrums, is that you are reliable. Your child knows they can count on you to do what you say. That means if you say a consequence will happen, they can count on that. If you say you will do something, they can count on that. So if you say, I will go ahead and get you a drink of water as soon as I get my shoes on, then you get your shoes on and then you get your child the drink of water. And just little things like that help your child learn to have some patience and to wait a little bit before getting exactly what she wants when she wants it. It can also be really helpful for you to teach your child how to label and recognize emotions. So helping them learn to understand when they're feeling sad and how to say sad, when they're feeling mad, disappointed, jealous, excited, scared. If they can express those things in ways other than a tantrum, then they can communicate rather in more effective ways rather than just a tantrum. If your child can't speak, then sign language is a great option for teaching language skills. If you have a situation where you have this screaming nonverbal child, make sure you read my post or see my video about that topic. Sometimes sign language is super helpful even if your child can communicate. When Brayden was a toddler, he would get super frustrated if he couldn't do something perfectly immediately, and he'd start to throw a little tantrum. It was a little frustration tantrum. He was upset, and so I taught him how to sign the word help instead. So it was something he could do. He didn't want to ask for help, but he was willing to sign for help. And so it was something he could do, put that energy into signing for help rather than throwing a tantrum. And then I would help him. You also want to pay attention and look for patterns. Try to notice if there is a certain pattern to when your child throws a tantrum. Does it always happen if nap is 15 minutes late? Does it always happen if your child gets too excited and stimulated? Does it always happen if your child is a little late for a meal? Pay attention to those things and do what you can to prevent them from happening. Another really important thing to do to prevent tantrums is to not let them work. Don't give in. If your child throws a fit and you give him what he wants, guess what he learned? He learned fits work. So if you don't want fits to happen in the future, you need to not let them work in the present. One of my favorite ways to prevent tantrums is to train in times of non-conflict. This means that you teach your child the rules and the expectations when you're not in the middle of the conflict. So if you're going into a store, before you walk into the store, you say, okay, we're going into the store. What are the rules in the store? Do we run? Do we stay right by mommy? Like, go through the rules. What are your expectations? I expect you to stay right by mommy. I expect you to hold on to the cart. I expect you to sit in the cart. You know, talk about all of those things before you're at the cart and like, okay, get in the cart. And your child, like, I don't want to be in the cart. I want to walk. If you talk about that before you even go in the store, then that can get resolved before you get there. Another great prevention method is to praise good behavior. If you see your child start to lose control and then gain back that control, praise that. Like, wow, I saw how disappointed you were, and I saw how you chose to not throw a fit, or I saw how you chose to listen to mommy anyway. I really appreciate that. That was really good work on your part. Another thing to do to prevent is to take out the word okay from the end of your instructions. So you don't say, hey, don't play in that dirt, okay? You say, hey, don't play in that dirt. Say yes, mommy. If you say okay at the end of your sentence, that gives a child a choice. And your child may choose the way you don't want your child to choose. But if you instruct your child to say yes, mommy, instead, then your child is agreeing to you. And children still can choose to disobey you, even if they say yes, mommy, but they are much less likely to disobey if that yes, mommy comes into play. Another way to prevent tantrums is to give a choice. So sometimes your child just feels a little out of control, but wants some measure of control. So you can give choices. When I had kids, seems like all of my children at some point when it was time for a nap would say, okay, it's time for a nap. Do you want to walk there or do you want me to carry you? And so initially they're upset, like, I don't want to go to a nap, I want to play. But then they're given this choice and this option, and they focus in on that, like, I'll walk. And if they don't make the choice, I tell them, if you don't choose, I will choose for you. And my choice will be that I will carry you, because typically they wanted to walk themselves. And so if they wanted to have the freedom to make that choice, they needed to respond and make it and take it. But if they threw a fit instead, then I got to make the choice instead. So that's a great way to quickly, again, distract them and to get them thinking about something else and understanding, like, okay, it is what it is. Like, and I want to be able to walk there at the very least, so I'm going to say I'm going to make a choice and I'm going to do it. There you have it. That is a lot of information. It covers a lot. Implement little by little as you can. Just always remember to be consistent, and you can have high expectations of your children, even your young toddlers. They will rise to those expectations. They are incredible. They're very intelligent. They learn quickly, and they can do this if you allow them the opportunity to do so. Good luck, and thanks for watching.